I'm going to tell you something today that will shatter everything you thought you knew about enlightenment and love. There's a secret price that comes with true awakening, and Carl Jung discovered it decades ago, buried deep in his research on the human psyche. What I'm about to reveal will explain why the most conscious people often walk this earth alone, and why that aloneness isn't what you think it is. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why you can't have both complete awakening and conventional love. You'll have to choose, and most people don't even know they're making that choice. Carl Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is the central task of human life. But what he didn't advertise widely, what got buried in the academic language and complex theories, was the profound cost of completing that journey. According to Carl Jung, when you truly individuate, when you integrate all the fragmented parts of yourself and stand psychologically naked before the universe, you become something that conventional society cannot recognize, cannot categorize, and most importantly, cannot love in the way it understands love. And here's what will keep you listening. This isn't a tragedy. It's a transformation so profound that calling it loneliness is like calling the ocean wet. It misses the entire point. Carl Jung discovered what he called the persona, and this discovery changes everything about how we understand romantic relationships. The persona, according to Jung, is the mask we wear, the social face we present to the world. It's not who we are, it's who we pretend to be to gain acceptance, approval, and love. Jung said the persona is necessary for functioning in society, but it's also the greatest source of our psychological suffering. Because we start to believe we are the mask, we forget there's a face underneath. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and this is something you need to hear. When two people fall in love, what's really happening? They're not falling in love with each other. They're falling in love with each other's personas. Carl Jung understood this deeply. Romance, in the conventional sense, is an elaborate dance between two masks. Each person carefully curates which parts of themselves to reveal, editing out the darkness, the confusion, the ordinary mundane reality of being human. They present the highlight reel, the mysterious allure, the promise of completeness. And the other person, equally desperate for connection, agrees to this unspoken contract. They invest in the persona. They build dreams around it. They fall in love with a carefully constructed image, not the chaotic totality of a human being. According to Carl Jung, this is necessary for romance to function. The game requires believers. It requires two people who are convinced that the masks are real, that the personas are the actual people. But what happens, and listen carefully because this is the turning point, what happens when someone goes through Jung's individuation process? What happens when they do the shadow work? When they integrate the unconscious, when they become conscious of their own persona? Something catastrophic occurs. They can no longer wear the mask convincingly. Carl Jung discovered that once you see through your own persona, once you recognize it as a construction rather than your identity, you can't unsee it. You watch yourself trying to be charming, trying to be mysterious, trying to play the role of the romantic partner, and you see it for exactly what it is, a performance. And worse still, you see through everyone else's performance too. The awakened person, the individuated person in Jung's terms, stands before others without a mask, completely psychologically naked. No pretense, no carefully crafted image, no future promises of becoming someone better. Just raw, unfiltered consciousness temporarily wearing a human form. And that level of transparency, that radical authenticity, is absolutely terrifying to people who are still identified with their personas. You want to know why awakened people seem untouchable? This is why. They've stopped playing a game that everyone else is still convinced is reality. Carl Jung said that everyone carries a shadow, and to know this shadow is the essential basis for any kind of self-knowledge. The shadow contains everything we've rejected about ourselves, everything we've deemed unacceptable, everything we've hidden away in the unconscious. According to Jung, most people spend their entire lives running from their shadow, projecting it onto others, and building their persona as a fortress against it. But the individuated person has done something radical. They've turned around and faced the shadow. They've integrated it. They've welcomed home all the rejected parts of themselves. And once you've done that, once you've embraced your own darkness and light as equally valid expressions of your humanity, something irreversible happens. You become whole. And wholeness, my friends, is incompatible with the game of romance. Here's what Carl Jung discovered that most people never grasp. When you stop pretending, when you stop performing, when you drop the persona entirely, people don't know what to do with you. They can't get a grip on you. You become unpinnable, uncategorizable. It's like trying to nail water to a wall. Our entire romantic structure, everything we've built around love and relationships, is based on pinning people down into roles, into promises, into predictable patterns. The person who hasn't done their shadow work is looking for someone to complete them. They're looking for their other half, as the romantic poets say. But Jung understood something profound. You cannot be half a person looking for another half. That's not how psychic wholeness works. According to Carl Jung, individuation means becoming complete within yourself. You integrate the shadow, you balance the anima or animus, you reconcile the opposites. You become whole. And two whole people meeting, that's an entirely different proposition than two halves desperately trying to make a whole. Most people aren't ready for that. They don't want wholeness meeting wholeness. They want need meeting need, wound meeting wound, emptiness trying to fill emptiness. That desperate clinging that feels like love, but is really just two people terrified of their own inner void, trying to fill it with another person's presence. Carl Jung saw this pattern repeat endlessly in his patients, and he understood that until they did the inner work, they would keep repeating it. Now here's something that will make you reconsider every relationship you've ever had. Carl Jung developed the concept of the anima and animus, the contrasexual aspects of the psyche. According to Jung, men carry an unconscious feminine aspect called the anima, and women carry an unconscious masculine aspect called the animus. And here's the key. Most people project these inner figures onto external partners. When a man falls in love, Jung discovered, he's often falling in love with his own projected anima. When a woman falls in love, she's often falling in love with her own projected animus. They're not actually seeing the other person at all. They're seeing a repository for their own unconscious content. This is what Jung called projection, and it's the foundation of romantic love as most people experience it. Imagine you meet someone at a party. Attractive, charming, intriguing. They ask you the usual questions. What do you do? Where are you going in life? What are your dreams? These questions are designed to build the story of who you think you are, to construct the persona you'll inhabit for this potential relationship. But if you've done Jung's work, if you've individuated, you realize you can't answer these questions honestly without sounding like you've lost your mind. Because the honest answer, according to Carl Jung's understanding of the self, is this: I am nobody going nowhere. And the whole thing is a cosmic dance of the unconscious made conscious. I am the self experiencing itself through this temporary form called a person. Try that at a cocktail party and watch what happens. People will smile politely and find someone else to talk to, someone who's still playing the game, someone who has ambitions and a 5-year plan, someone they can understand, categorize, and potentially fit into their life narrative. You see, people want to date a character in a story, not the author of the story. They want someone with a trajectory they can predict, a future they can imagine, a persona they can grasp. Carl Jung understood that the individuated person has no fixed story. They're not playing a character anymore. They're simply being whatever emerges from the unconscious in each moment, responding authentically to life as it unfolds. The more you integrate the shadow, the more you withdraw your projections, the more you individuate in Jung's sense, the less you can participate in the usual dance of relationship. Because that dance requires two people who believe in their separate, fixed identities. It requires someone who can say, I need you, and mean it in that desperate, hungry way that makes for great poetry and terrible relationships. That beautiful, tragic need that spawns 1,000 love songs and 1,000,000 broken hearts. Carl Jung called this participation mystique, the unconscious identification with another that creates the feeling of being in love. But the individuated person can't create that identification anymore. They've separated from it. They've become conscious. Here's where Carl Jung's genius really shines through, and this will change how you see everything. Jung discovered the collective unconscious, a layer of the psyche that we all share, that connects every human being at a level deeper than personal identity. According to Jung, beneath our individual egos, beneath our personas, and our personal unconscious, there's this vast ocean of shared human experience, shared symbols, shared archetypal patterns. Now think about what this means for the individuated person. Someone who has descended into the collective unconscious, who has experienced their connection to all of humanity at that deep level, who has realized that separation is an illusion created by ego consciousness. How can such a person participate in the game of romantic possession? Carl Jung understood that they can't. Not convincingly. Think about the language we use in relationships. My girlfriend, my boyfriend, my wife, my husband. We speak of human beings as if they were property, as if they were extensions of our ego. And when someone leaves us, we feel robbed, betrayed, as if something that belonged to us has been stolen. This is the ego's perspective, the persona's perspective. But the individuated person, according to Carl Jung, has transcended ego identification. They've touched the self, that deeper center of the psyche that is both individual and universal. The awakened person, the individuated soul, cannot be owned because they don't even own themselves. Carl Jung said the goal is not to strengthen the ego but to relativize it, to put it in proper relationship to the self. How can you possess someone who has realized they don't exist as a separate, solid, possessible entity? It's like trying to capture smoke. You can see it, you can move through it, but the moment you grasp for it, there's nothing there. And this is the part that will blow your mind. The individuated person loves. Oh yes, according to Carl Jung, they love more deeply, more completely than you can imagine. But it's a different kind of love. It's love without hooks, without agenda, without the ego's need to possess and control. Jung called this agape in some of his writings, borrowing from the Christian mystics. It's love that flows from the self, not from the ego's neediness. It's like the sun shining. The sun doesn't decide to shine on you because you've been good or withhold its light because you've disappointed it. It just shines. That's its nature. According to Carl Jung, the individuated person loves in this same unconditional, indiscriminate way. They love because they've realized love is what they are at the deepest level, not something they need to get from others. But here's the tragedy that Carl Jung witnessed again and again in his practice, and you need to understand this. Most people don't want that kind of love. They want the other kind. The kind with conditions, with strings attached, with unspoken contracts. The kind that says, I love you because you make me feel complete. I love you because you validate my ego. I love you because when I'm with you, I can forget the gnawing anxiety that I might be fundamentally alone and empty inside. That's the love that comes with expectations neither party can articulate, but both understand perfectly. It's a business arrangement disguised as romance. Two egos making a deal. You shore up my identity, and I'll shore up yours. You reflect back to me the image I want to have of myself, and I'll do the same for you. According to Carl Jung, this is what passes for love in most relationships, and it's not really love at all. It's mutual ego reinforcement. The individuated soul cannot enter into this arrangement, not because they're superior or enlightened in some holier-than-thou sense, but because they've seen through the very mechanism that makes the arrangement possible. Carl Jung discovered that once you've integrated the shadow, once you've withdrawn your projections, once you've differentiated from the collective, you can't fake the neediness anymore. You can't manufacture the anxiety that makes possession feel like security. You can't pretend that another person has the power to make you whole because you've discovered you were never broken to begin with. And so they wander through this world of lovers like a sober person at a party where everyone else is drunk. Everyone around them is caught up in the drama, the intensity, the passionate highs, and crushing lows of romantic love. And they're just watching with bemused affection, like a wise elder watching children play a very serious game of make-believe. Carl Jung himself described this state, this sense of being in the world but not of it, of seeing the archetypal patterns playing out while others are completely identified with them. They can appreciate the beauty of the game. They can even participate to some degree, but they can't lose themselves in it. And losing yourself, surrendering your hard-won individuation, is precisely what falling in love is supposed to be about. We even say it that way, don't we? I lost myself in her eyes. I was beside myself with passion. The language reveals the truth. Romantic love, in its conventional form, is about losing yourself, about temporarily abandoning the burden of being a separate individual in the arms of another. According to Carl Jung, this is actually a glimpse of what he called the Konyoung, the sacred marriage, the union of opposites. But most people experience it through projection onto another person rather than as an internal process. They mistake the person for the experience. They think it's about the other person, but it's not. It's about the temporary dissolution of ego boundaries, the brief experience of unity that the individuated person knows as their permanent state. Carl Jung spent much of his later life exploring what he called the Konijungsho, the mystical union of opposites. In alchemical terms, which Jung studied extensively, this was the sacred marriage of the king and queen, sulfur and mercury, sun and moon. But according to Jung, this wasn't about two people coming together. It was about the internal integration of opposites within the individual psyche. The masculine and feminine, the conscious and unconscious, the light and shadow, all of these pairs of opposites exist within each person. And Jung discovered that true individuation requires their reconciliation, their marriage within the individual soul. This is the Konijungsho. This is the sacred union that everyone is seeking when they fall in love with another person. But here's what will make you see your entire romantic history differently. When you seek this union externally, through romantic relationship, you're looking in the wrong place. Carl Jung understood that the other person becomes a screen onto which you project your own inner opposites. You're trying to achieve internally through external means. And it can't work. Not permanently. The romantic high, that ecstatic feeling of falling in love, happens because for a brief moment, the projections work. For a moment, through the intensity of romantic merger, you experience the dissolution of boundaries. You get a taste of union, of wholeness, of the Konijungsho. And it feels transcendent precisely because for that brief moment, you're experiencing what the individuated person knows all the time. That separation is an illusion, that we're all expressions of one unified consciousness. But then, according to Carl Jung's observations, the projections fail. The other person inevitably reveals themselves to be human, flawed, incapable of carrying your anima or animus perfectly. The boundaries snap back into place. You're separate again, and so you chase that feeling. You fall in love again and again, trying to recapture that moment of dissolution, that glimpse of the Konijungsho. The individuated person doesn't need another person to experience the Konijungsho because they've achieved it internally. Carl Jung said that this internal union is the goal of the individuation process. The masculine and feminine within have been integrated. The conscious and unconscious are in dialogue. The opposites have been reconciled. They live in that state of internal wholeness that everyone else is desperately seeking through relationship. Can you see the problem now? The individuated person is offering what everyone wants, but in a form no one recognizes. According to Carl Jung, they embody the very completion that others seek. But people walk right past it because it doesn't come in the expected package. It doesn't come with neediness, with dramatic suffering, with promises of forever, with the intoxicating dance of projection and merger. They want someone who needs them back, who will play the game with conviction, who will suffer dramatically when they threaten to leave, who will cling and promise and perform the elaborate ritual of romantic love. The individuated person can't do any of that, not authentically, and so they become untouchable, not by choice, but by transformation. You might be thinking, what about two individuated people? Couldn't they have a relationship? And here's where Carl Jung's understanding becomes truly beautiful. According to Jung, when two individuated souls meet, when two people who have completed the internal Konijungsho encounter each other, something entirely different happens. It's not a relationship in the conventional sense. It's what Jung might call a synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence orchestrated by the collective unconscious itself. They don't have that drama of separation and union, the pushing and pulling, the needing and fulfilling. They don't project their anima or animus onto each other because they've already integrated those aspects internally. They simply enjoy each other's company moment by moment, with no story about past or future, no agenda, no ego contracts. Carl Jung understood that this is incredibly rare because individuation itself is rare. Most people never complete the journey. When it does happen, it's not a relationship, it's a communion. Two wholes meeting, recognizing each other, delighting in the recognition. They dance together without stepping on each other's toes because neither is trying to lead from ego. They're both led by the self, that deeper center that Jung spent his life trying to describe and help others access. But such meetings are rare as diamonds. According to Carl Jung, most individuated souls spend their time wandering through a world of people still caught in identification with persona, still hungry for projection, still believing that happiness is just one perfect partner away. And the individuated person looks at all this with tremendous compassion because they remember. Carl Jung himself remembered. He remembered the hunger, the desperate searching, the years of believing that completion came from outside. He remembered it like you might remember a dream from childhood, vivid but no longer compelling. So they remain alone in a certain sense. Not lonely, mind you. Carl Jung made a crucial distinction here. Loneliness is what you feel when you're a separate ego longing for connection to another separate ego. But the individuated person is never lonely because they're never truly alone. They've touched the collective unconscious. They've experienced their connection to all of humanity, to all of existence. They're the ocean experiencing itself as a wave, as Jung beautifully put it. But they are solitary in the sense that very few people can meet them where they are. According to Carl Jung, most relationships require you to pretend to be smaller than you are, to squeeze yourself back into the costume of being a separate ego with needs and fears and ambitions. The individuated person can't do that anymore. The costume doesn't fit. The transformation is complete and irreversible. And so they live in this world loving everyone and belonging to no one. Available to all but possessed by none. Carl Jung discovered this paradox at the heart of individuation. You gain everything, the whole universe, the entire collective unconscious, the connection to all that is. And you lose the ability to play the game that makes most people feel alive. You become cosmically rich and romantically poor by conventional standards. You see the joke, but nobody's laughing with you. You're free, but freedom looks like loneliness to people who are still in the prison of ego identification. And yet, as Carl Jung understood, there's something utterly perfect about it. The individuated person doesn't feel they're missing out. They're not sitting around wishing they could fall and love the way other people do. They're complete. And completion is what everyone's looking for through relationship, but can never find there. Because according to Carl Jung's life work, you cannot find completeness in another person. You can only find it through the individuation process, by yourself, within yourself. Or rather, by realizing that the separate self you've been trying to complete is itself an illusion. This is what Jung meant by the self with a capital S, that deeper reality that is both individual and universal, both personal and transpersonal. This is the secret that Carl Jung discovered and that I'm revealing to you now. The individuated soul can't find love because they've become love itself. They are the Konyoungsho. They are the union everyone else is seeking. And you can't find what you already are. You can't seek what you've already become. The search is over for them. But the party is still going on, and everyone at the party is still searching. So the awakened person, the individuated soul in Jung's terms, sits in the corner radiating love to everyone who passes by. But rarely do people stop. They're too busy searching for love to notice it standing right there, looking at them with those knowing eyes. And that is the cosmic joke, the cosmic tragedy, and the cosmic perfection that Carl Jung spent his life trying to help us understand. The individuated soul becomes love itself, and in doing so, becomes impossible to love in the way most people understand love. They've transcended the game entirely. And once you've transcended the game, as Carl Jung knew, you can't go back and play it with a straight face. You're done, complete, whole, and profoundly, beautifully, perfectly alone in the crowd. Not because no one loves them, but because everyone does, and no one knows it. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it. And if you'd like to go a step further in supporting this work, you can now leave a super thanks below. It's a small way to say thank you, and it truly helps keep this channel going.